Coming up, U.S. Marshals search for an Oklahoma woman who violated her probation.
Weather beginning to gather in the Pacific Northwest and cooler temps before we even get to sunrise. We'll have the latest on our winter weather from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, with the spread of the highly contagious Omicron variant comes a higher demand for COVID testing. We'll tell you how local pharmacies are dealing with the increased demand. Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, baby, it's cold outside.
And here's the thing. As we get closer to sunrise, Tanya, about 7:30, we got ways to go.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we actually haven't bottomed out yet for today. It's going to get just a little bit colder, drop down into the high 20s here before we even get some sunshine. Mother Nature gathering her forces up in the Pacific Northwest right there, waiting to eject across the Rockies and head our way. In the meantime, we've got a little cloud cover down to the southeastern portion of southwest Missouri, everybody else under clear skies. With temperatures right now hovering mostly high 20s. We got a couple 32, 34s down here to the south. But like I said, while our temperatures up to the northwest have pretty much stabilized, everybody else going to drop another 4 or 5 degrees before we get to 7:30. Wind tracker, yep, we knew the arrows were going to switch on us. That's exactly what happened overnight. While we're going to avoid the 40-mile-an-hour winds that we had yesterday, still an indicator that the cold front going to take all this cold air and force it down our way. And then this system that we've been talking about, it just rides the jet stream right through. Almost takes that exact U-shape toward the east coast by the time we get to Friday. We'll start off with mostly sunny skies today. Temperatures make it up into the mid-30s, but then let's talk about what we know is coming for late tonight, early Thursday morning. Now, this is going to be high resolution radar, so it's going to be about midnight up in the north when it starts. Has a tendency to get a little finicky there with its colors because I want everybody to be on the very safe side here. The majority of it still falling Thursday morning, anywhere from half to an inch, pockets of possibly even 2 inches before it departs. And that timing just absolutely perfect for tomorrow's commute. And I mean, don't mean perfect in a good way either. And the other thing about the timing of this, Tanya, a lot of times I juggle back on that forecast, a couple hours here, a couple hours there. This thing has been eerily consistent ever since we started talking about it last week. So feeling pretty good about that early Thursday morning timing.
All right, thanks, Michael. U.S. Marshals are looking for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty of assault by striking, beating, and wounding another person. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy in the 4 states. If you try to find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit. That's according to Adam Fletcher at Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. That shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast.
So basically, it's first come, first serve. If we hold something, sometimes people won't show up, and then you don't give it to somebody else that could have received one. So that's tough. But if you're here, we'll gladly sell you one if we had them in stock.
Amazon, CVS, and Walgreens have recently started to limit how many at-home COVID tests a customer can buy. Kansas reports a record 7-day average for new confirmed and probable COVID-19 cases. State Health Department data shows Kansas reported an average of 3,134 new COVID-19 cases a day for the 7 days ending yesterday. That's 13% higher than the previous record set in mid-November of 2020. A former employee of the Missouri House is suing for a wrongful termination after expressing concern about a COVID policy. Now, a couple of top Missouri lawmakers are expected to be deposed in that federal lawsuit. Ted Mayfield says he asked Senate President David Schatz and former House Speaker Elijah Har in August of 2020 to require masks in the entire Capitol building, not just among administrative staff of the House. He says he was later fired for alleged poor performance, but believes it was the mask request. The lawsuit comes as the legislature convenes its 2022 session today, with few COVID-19 safety measures in place. The Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them, and they're making substitute pay consistent across the district.
COVID has made the matter more obvious, and we've always had problems finding subs, but COVID has kind of taken away maybe some of the veterans who would come and sub for us, and just the idea that being around a bunch of kids might make them a little nervous, but hopefully this will allow us an opportunity to bring some people back.
Retired support staff, custodians, and food service workers will also see a pay increase for filling in those positions as a substitute. Carthage's Mark Twain Elementary said farewell to its longtime principal, Laura Rosenthal. Rosenthal started as a teacher at the school 55 years ago. After 21 years of teaching, she became principal for 34 years. She says she plans to spend retirement traveling and with family, but she's going to miss working at the school.
I think I'll miss every day seeing the staff and the students and the camaraderie. We're more like a family. I've always tried to have it be just like a family here, and that's what we are, and I will miss that.
Rosenthal has won several awards over the years, including Carthage's Citizen of the Year. The Crawford County Habitat for Humanity is accepting applications for home ownership. Organization builds houses for families in need. The application period runs until February 28th. Applicants must have lived in Crawford County for at least 1 year. If you're interested in applying, you can download an application online and email it to Habitat. We've provided a link on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Retail giant Target is offering support to area nonprofits, including Joplin's Connect to Culture, but they need your help. C2C and a handful of other organizations have been nominated for the Target Circle Community Giving Program. It's a way for Target to make donations to local nonprofits. But the way the donations are divided is up to the community. Target Circle members can vote for an organization, and the one with the most votes gets the highest percentage of funds. We've provided a link to the voting on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. It's 5:07.
Chilly outside, wind chills dropping down into the teens, even where we have temperatures that are above the freezing mark south of I-44. Still feeling about like 17 in Neosho and 24 right now in Grove. So please remember, it's going to continue to drop here about another 4 to 5 degrees before we get to sunrise. Then we sit back and we wait for flurries around midnight. It'll turn into legitimate snow for Thursday morning.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the Carthage Tigers look to extend their 9-1 season in a big home game against the Nixa Eagles. Could they do it? Plus, winter storms strand drivers on one of America's busiest highways for hours. But do you think winter is all bad? We want you to weigh in. And cold and flu season comes this year during record-setting COVID cases. If you're sick, with the cold and flu, the COVID can have similar symptoms. We'll help you sort out the differences. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a career?
Carthage Tigers, one of the hottest teams in the 4 states to begin the basketball season. 9-1 overall, won a tournament title in Rolla last week. And last night, trying to stay rolling, had a big game at home facing the Nixa Eagles. Now, Nixa comes in burning as well. They're 8-1, ranked 3rd in the state in Class 6. Eagles start quick. Colton Berry in the paint turns, hits the shot. Then Jarrett Nelson, he responds with the easy lay-in. Nixa on a roll. First bucket for the Tigers comes right before the first quarter buzzer. Joel Pugh scores. 13-2 Nixa after the first. Second quarter action. Carthage tries to close the gap. Pugh from outside. He led Carthage with 17 points last night, but Nixa in control. Back to Nelson. Punch it two-handed. He had 10 points. Eagles beat Carthage 57-40. Carthage girls also in action last night at home. Tough one for them up against a 12-1 Stratford team. And Carthage falls 64-37. Tigers now 5-7 headed into Thursday's road trip going down to McDonald County. Speaking of Mack County, Mustangs faced the Cardinals last night in Webb City. These two boys teams, what a start for them. McDonald County just finished second at the Neosho Holiday Classic. Webb City 6-2 in their first 8 games, ranked number 8 in the state in Class 5. Early on, Caden Turner for Webb, 3 from the corner in your living room. Then Cole Baden. This is a nice look. Trey Rhodes, Cardinals up 11-3. Rhodes 9 points, 11 rebounds. Other end, Cross Dowd, smooth looking pull up. Webb leads by 7 after the first quarter. Dante Washington got hot in the second. 14 points in the second quarter alone. Washington finishes with 25. That's a game high. Third quarter, Cards start beating up the rim. Trey Rhodes throwing it down. Washington. Oh my! Caden Turner. And then Turner on the break. By the way, Turner had the dunk, the layup, 14 points, and 12 rebounds. My goodness. Webb City cruises by McDonald County. 84-53. In the girls' game in Webb City, Cardinals facing Nevada and looking for their 3rd straight win, and Webb City gets it done 54-37. Sammy Mancini leads the way with 24 points for the Cardinals, who are back in action on Thursday, hosting Logan Rogersville. In the SEK last night, Pittsburgh Purple Dragons on the road. Doubleheader against Chanute. We'll start with the girls' game. Pittsburgh gets its first win of the season, 42-35. As for the boys, nice win for the Purple Dragons. Take down the 9th-ranked Blue Comets, 67-52. Kansas State Wildcats finished up football season last night. K-State in the Texas Bowl. Got to play that in Houston, facing a depleted LSU Tigers roster. Wildcats finished their regular season 7-5 overall, and K-State ends up blowing them out 42-20. LSU had, so you had academic issues, you had COVID issues, you had people that transfer portal issues, quite frankly, people that weren't going to play in the bowl game for LSU. So get this, they found out yesterday morning that they did not have a scholarship quarterback on the roster. Ended up having a wide receiver start the game at quarterback. That's not to take anything away from K-State going out there and dropping 40 on LSU. Take that any day of the week. Kansas City Chiefs finish up the regular season on Saturday, hit the road to face the Denver Broncos. Chiefs head into the final week with an 11-5 record after dropping Sunday's game to Cincinnati. Right now, KC, number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs, and remember, can still get that number 1 seed. Of course, they got to beat the Broncos on Saturday and then have the Titans lose to the Texans on Sunday, although that is not probabilistic. Although the Chiefs playing on Saturday, losing a day of preparation, head coach Andy Reid says the team's going to be ready to go to make sure they grab some momentum before the postseason.
We've got to have a good week of practice. Don't care if it's Saturday, Sunday, whenever we're playing, we're playing. That's the kind of locker room I've got. They roll with it. It's a little bit of a sudden change for everybody involved, the whole organization getting ready. But Denver's doing the same thing. So, and they want to win the game too. So that's we've got to make sure we're ready for them.
Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, more trouble in Haiti as the Haitian Prime Minister survives an assassination attempt on his life over the weekend. We'll have the details. And a check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns.
Ron Supermarket.
Just past 5:17 gives us a good time for weather on the 7th. A little cloud cover down south of I-44. Everybody else staying on the clear side. And with chilly temperatures, now that our wind has shifted, we're going to drop a couple degrees before we begin to stabilize here, probably about 8, 9 a.m. That gives you an idea of the wind arrows. At least it's not coming in at 40 miles an hour like it was yesterday. We'll get to national perspective here. This is that split low that we had, half of it taking off of the Great Lakes, staying up to the north. That is the one that's now formulating, beginning to make its way over the Rockies, slowly creep toward us here. It did slow down a little bit compared to the legs that it had on it yesterday. We avoid any watches, warnings, or even advisories. We do have freeze warnings out through central Kansas and into central Oklahoma as well, but none of our highlighted counties happen to be affected. So as we're going to concentrate on this one for really the entire day into tomorrow morning, Also important to point out that they still have a mess on their hands through portions of I-95 from the Virginia-Carolina border up to D.C., and we're going to show you exactly what those travelers are going through here in just a little bit. Highs today in the mid-30s. That's about 10 degrees cooler than what we'd normally have, but more importantly, if you need to get anything done today outside, it's going to be the day to do it, because we know that it's going to start with flurries late tonight, and then we're going to end up with legitimate snowfall. So here's what Future Track has in store. As far as our timing goes, start in the north and then filter all the way down to the south. We'll see anywhere from a dusting to about an inch of accumulation. But it's really just the timing, because it's going to happen pre-sunrise. That's what I'm been encouraging people. Make sure we get a head start for tomorrow. Let's get into defensive driving mode and then get ready for a blast of cold air for tonight and Thursday night as well. Now, we were talking about the I-95 mess from the weekend storm. Well, we'll make that the subject of our Something to Talk About. It's been a nightmare on one of the nation's busiest highways. Just outside of D.C., you've got an area stranding people in their vehicles for hours on end. John Lawrence has the latest.
I have never been this frightened on the road before.
Drivers endured hours of misery, trapped in their vehicles after a severe winter storm snarled traffic to a standstill on Interstate 95 for a 50-mile stretch in Maryland and Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
There are a lot of people out here, the elderly, the infirm, people who can't walk, people who need medicine. It can turn into from a convenience into a crisis pretty quickly, and then from a crisis to a tragedy even faster.
Some people spent the night in their cars, some ran out of gas, and some abandoned their vehicles to get warmth, water, food, and safety.
I walked up here to get food because we done ran out of food.
Virginia Senator Tim Kaine says he was stuck for 27 hours.
At some point, it switched from a miserable travel day into kind of a survival mode day for me.
But the time trapped on the icy, slush-covered tar wasn't all bad. A trucker tried to make the best of the situation with a gesture of kindness and offered up a hot breakfast to his fellow stranded motorists.
Hey, I just made you a hot breakfast and a cup of fruit punch. I saw you were sitting out here the whole time. As long as me, I was here since 1 a.m. So it was him and his mother, and both of them were really appreciative. It was a really nice moment.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
With all that being said and the mess that they're enduring right now, our question to you is, what's your favorite season? You can go straight to the poll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. You can connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now, or if you've got your phone handy, you can always take a picture of our QR code that we throw up each morning. That will deliver you straight to the poll. And don't worry if you don't have it handy. We'll come back and we'll run that a couple more times throughout the course of our show. Be back with Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, according to a study from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, pregnant women who receive a COVID vaccine do not face an increased risk of preterm births or low-weight babies. Researchers looked at about 46,000 expectant mothers. They studied both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines and its impact on pregnant women who were vaccinated during their second or third trimester. The scientists say the findings were consistent and they did not find a link between the vaccines and those conditions. Researchers note they did not have enough data to analyze possible risk when it came to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The CDC recommends all pregnant women get vaccinated. Well, some big coronavirus updates from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on a couple of fronts. Agency is updating its isolation guidance for infected people. Experts say they should get a rapid COVID test near the end of a 5-day isolation period. If the test is positive, you should remain isolated until 10 days after the onset of symptoms. CDC faced pressure to include a testing component in its new shortened isolation guidance. It says the new guidance focuses on the period when a person is most infectious. But also on Tuesday, the CDC shared evidence that the Omicron variant is up to 3 times more infectious than Delta. Study by UK and Japanese health officials shows immunity from vaccines or antibodies is not always strong enough to stop the transmission of Omicron. A South Florida hospital had to shut down an entire department because of a COVID-19 outbreak. Holy Cross Health says labor and delivery is closed down until further notice because of a critical staffing shortage. The NICU and postpartum departments remain open, though. South Florida has seen a surge in COVID-19 cases fueled by holiday travel and the contagious Omicron variant. The number of COVID patients at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami nearly doubled in a week to 414. For the first time in the pandemic, COVID-19 cases top 400,000 per day. To slow the spread, you must first know when you're infected, which can be confusing when you factor in colds, flu, and even allergies. Mandy Gaither goes over how to tell the difference.
COVID-19 cases at an all-time high. Colliding with cold and flu season. If you're sick, several symptoms seem the same, so think about your exposure risk.
If you may have been exposed to somebody with COVID-19, it increases the probability that it's COVID-19.
If infected with the coronavirus, your symptoms may include fever or chills, cough, body aches, headaches, tiredness, shortness of breath, and loss of taste or smell. The CDC says having a sore throat, sneezing, itchy or watery eyes, and having a runny or stuffy nose are less common with COVID-19.
Even though with Omicron, it's less likely that you're going to lose your sense of smell or your sense of taste, those are really specific for COVID-19. And the second that seems to be a bit more common with Omicron, given the data, is a headache.
Someone with the flu may experience all these ailments, but the loss of taste or smell is more frequent with COVID-19. When it comes to colds, fever or chills are not common, but you may have a cough, body aches, tiredness, be sneezing, or have a runny or stuffy nose.
Once you start feeling those symptoms, even if it is a cold or flu, given the goal of flattening the curve, it's worth isolating yourself and getting a couple of tests.
After a potential exposure to COVID-19, wait to test once you're getting symptoms, then test one day and again the next to be sure.
That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
We've got wind chills right now down into the teens. It's chilly outside. We're going to come back, break down Thursday's morning snow when we see you in a second.
Thank you for...
Good morning, I'm Tanya Bach with your KOAM News Update. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy here in the 4 states. If you try to find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit. That's according to Adam Fletcher at Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. That shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast. Building Legos can stimulate creativity among kids, and that's exactly what the Museum of Creativity in Fort Scott is going for with its Lego Club. The club is open for kids ages 7 to 18. It features a different theme each week that kids can build around. The top builds each week will be displayed in the museum. The club meets every Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. It costs $1 per child. Here's Michael with today's forecast.
Chilly Wednesday, even with the sunshine, wind shifts now moving in from the north, so temperatures only going to make it up into the mid-30s. Then we get ready for Thursday morning. There it is, developing top left of your screen up in the northwest. On us for early Thursday morning. We'll see a little bit late Wednesday night to the north, but mainly so through Thursday morning, just in time for everybody to get out the door. Please be very, very safe.
Coming up, U.S. Marshals search for an Oklahoma woman who violated her probation.
North wind tells the story. Now that the arrows have switched on us, we've got winter weather on the way. We'll take a look at our accumulation numbers from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, with the spread of the highly contagious Omicron variant comes a higher demand for COVID testing. We're going to tell you how local pharmacies are dealing with the increased demand.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. It's cold outside, but it's only going to get colder. Let's go straight to Michael Hayslip with the
And
weather.
when Tanya says that, folks, she doesn't mean overnight. She means this morning it's actually going to get colder. And the big difference is yesterday, our wind arrows went from bottom to top, came in from the south at 40 miles per hour. Overnight, now switching Got north air coming in, and it is cold. Not only chilly right now, but just like Tanya said, it's actually going to drop several degrees from what we're at. You got to get really along and south of I-44 to even see the freezing mark. We've gotten as low as 22 up north in Iola. So we factor in that north wind, and there's a whole lot of teens out there as far as what our wind chills are. Now, the afternoon planner will give us sunshine, lift us up into the mid-30s as the temperatures will begin to stabilize about 9-10 a.m. But anticipate it going down several degrees before then. And then overnight, we're going to start with flurries, and then we're going to get legitimate Thursday morning snow. The low pressure system that's already developed and is already on the move moves in late tonight, and will begin in the upper quadrant, but for the most part is going to be early Thursday morning. So this area about right in there, we can go anywhere from 2 to 2.5 inches, and then it tapers off as you move down to the south. But once again, look at the timing of it. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to hit us before we're ready to get on the roads and everything, which maybe that gives you a little more prep time. Hopefully this is not one of those that's going to be surprising by any means. We've been talking about it for days. Also, too, make sure you got that emergency kit. This is our first real bout of winter defensive driving, because should something happen, I want to point out how cold Thursday into Friday is going to be. And even tonight, we're down into the teens. But Tanya, one of those things where just a friendly reminder, it's always great to have change of clothes, boots, and a couple of blankets back there.
Yeah, don't forget,
never hurt anybody.
Don't forget the gloves and hat.
I'm surprised I don't have those on right now in the studio.
Yeah. It's not as cold as it is sometimes in here. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, U.S. Marshals are searching for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. Kansas reports a record 7-day average for new confirmed and probable COVID-19 cases. State Health Department data shows Kansas reported an average of 3,134 new COVID-19 cases a day for the 7 days ending yesterday. That's 13% higher than the previous record set in mid-November of 2020. Well, now that the holiday gatherings have passed, a lot of four-staters may want to pick up at-home COVID-19 tests. But as cases rise, those tests could be harder to find. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky tells us how the shortage of these tests has hit one local pharmacy.
The holidays are over, which means kids are heading back to school and many people will travel home from vacation. And with COVID-19 cases once again on the rise, you might want to get tested before heading back to day-to-day life. The only issue...
We carry the Binax rapid test. When we can get it. Yeah. With everybody traveling over the holidays, yeah, the tests have been really hard to come by.
Adam Fletcher, manager at Prater's Pharmacy, tells us there's been an increased demand for at-home rapid COVID tests. The reason for this increased demand could be due to a few factors, such as the Omicron variant and people gathering and traveling for the holiday.
We typically get 5, and the ones we've had recently, when we've got 5 of them, they've gone out in the same day. We usually have numerous calls a day. It's first come, first serve, and when we get them, and then we've been out for some time now. Some people will try to ask us to hold them, but it's hard to do that.
Fletcher says it may not be just them either.
It's very common. It's like pretty much every pharmacy. Around Christmas, we had so many phone calls just asking, do you have a test, and the consensus is no. I don't think anybody around really does.
Even larger pharmacies and retailers like Amazon, Walmart, and CVS recently announced that they will be limiting the amount of COVID-19 tests that a person can purchase. All of this while the U.S. reports over 1 million new daily COVID cases.
New cases are popping up every day. We're seeing more and more now than we did even when we were at our worst parts of COVID a year ago. So it's most important to continue to wear your mask and also, I guess most importantly, get the vaccine.
In Webb City, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
The FDA recently reported a decrease in sensitivity in rapid antigen tests when it comes to detecting the Omicron variant. But they say if you test positive, you should trust the result. The Mark Twain Elementary School in Carthage says goodbye to longtime principal Laura Rosenthal. Rosenthal started as a teacher at the school 55 years ago. After 21 years of teaching, she became principal for 34 years. She says she plans to spend retirement traveling and with family, but she's going to miss working at the school.
I think I'll miss every day seeing the staff and the students and the camaraderie. We're more like a family. I've always tried to have it be just like a family here, and that's what we are, and I will miss that.
Rosenthal has won several awards over the years, including Carthage's Citizen of the Year. Crawford County Habitat for Humanity is accepting applications for home ownership. The organization builds houses for families in need. The application period runs until February 28th. Applicants must have lived in Crawford County for at least 1 year. If you're interested in applying, you can download an application online and email it to Habitat. We've provided a link on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Retail giant Target offers its support to local nonprofits, including Joplin's Connect to Culture, but they'll need your help to do so. C2C and a handful of other organizations have been nominated for the Target Circle Community Giving Program. It's a way for Target to make donations to local nonprofits. But the way these donations are divided is up to the community. Target Circle members can vote for an organization, and the one with the most votes gets the highest percentage of funds. We've provided a link to the voting on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's Michael with a look at your forecast.
Future track has us in the mid-30s today. A whole lot of sunshine, looking absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, we get ready for a little bit of action tonight. It'll begin with flurries up to the north. And then as we get into early Thursday morning, I tell you, number one, we've been talking about the snow. Let's not disregard how I just combine bitter and brutal. Brittly cold it's going to be. Like I said, I want everybody to make sure you got the old emergency kit ready to go, including blankets, grab you a change of clothes as well. We all take it nice and slow and get out the door early. We'll be all right. But we're going to see pockets of 2 inches of accumulation. Now, that won't be widespread, but we'll see it every now and then.
That's a look at today's top news stories. Coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News, we'll introduce you to a superhero who's getting a little super help from his community. Plus, Hong Kong's quest for zero COVID comes at a heavy mental, physical, financial cost for those in quarantine. We'll have the latest. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Topping World Watch, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, plans to hold a special meeting with Russian officials on January 12th in Brussels. All NATO ambassadors and top Russian officials are invited as both sides seek dialogue to prevent open conflict over Ukraine. That's according to a NATO spokesman. Separately, NATO will hold an extraordinary virtual meeting of NATO foreign ministers this Friday, January 7th. Russia's military buildup in and near Ukraine and broader European security issues are on the agenda. China Central Television reports at least 14 people have died and 3 others injured after a landslide at a construction site in Beiji City, Guizhou province on Monday. According to the city's government, the injured were transferred to a local hospital. Their condition as of Tuesday morning was stable. Emergency, fire, and public safety personnel are participating in rescue efforts. And further investigations are underway to determine the cause of the incident. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry survives an attempt on his life. Gunshots could be heard in the background on Saturday while Henry attended a ceremony commemorating the country's independence. Henry's office said Monday that, quote, bandits and terrorists tried to shoot the prime minister at a church. Haitian media pointed to a possible gang involvement, while police called Saturday's attack a work of armed groups. Prior to the incident, a local gang boss had made threats against Henry in local media. The Prime Minister's office says arrest warrants have been issued for suspects. Hong Kong has prided itself on being one of the safest cities in the world during the pandemic. But the city's COVID security comes at a heavy price for some. Will Ripley gives us an inside look at how the required quarantines can take a serious toll on people, physically, financially, and emotionally.
In zero COVID Hong Kong, pandemic protocols have paralyzed this once busy travel hub. The arrival process that used to take minutes now drags on for hours. Mandatory testing at the airport, waiting hours for the results. The lucky ones test negative and spend up to 21 days in self-paid hotel quarantine. Daryl Chan is not one of the lucky ones.
I'd had both of my jabs. I'd been boosted. I didn't ever think that I would be actually test positive on arrival.
13 hours after landing in Hong Kong, Chan was in an ambulance. His luggage left at the airport. He tested positive for the Omicron variant. Even without symptoms, his minimum hospital stay is nearly a month.
Do you worry about your mental health as these days turn into weeks?
Yeah, absolutely, because I've never been in a situation like this before.
In general, there is increased sense of isolation, anxiety, and in some severe cases, even post-traumatic stress.
Hong Kong psychiatrist Dr. Elizabeth Wong says longer quarantines can be more traumatic.
And then we have a lot of changes between the 7 days and the 14 days and the 21 days, and that was when people reported more stress, especially with a longer period of quarantine.
Daryl's day begins with a wake-up jingle.
Attention, please.
He takes his own vitals. Calls and messages with friends and family help pass the time.
Social media has really helped, actually. Definitely makes you feel less alone.
One of his greatest struggles, sharing a room and a bathroom with two strangers.
But I think what has definitely impacted me the most so far is the feeling of just, not having the freedom and regressing into almost feeling like you're back at school, with controlled wake up and bedtimes, not being able to control what you can eat.
Hospital meals often consist of mystery meat. The bigger mystery, Chan's release date. He's supposed to start a new job, a new life in Hong Kong.
What's the worst part of this?
I think the worst part is not knowing when I'll be able to get out.
For now, all he can do is wait. From his hospital bed, freedom feels like a lifetime away. Will Ripley, CNN, Hong Kong.
Well, that's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. On the KOAM News Now Facebook page in our morning Insta poll discussing the seasons, because it's wintertime. We got snow that's a-coming. We're not going to get anything like that. That is a look at I-95 in the state of Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. You got people stranded in their vehicles, some of them as much as 19 hours. Some of them ran out of gas. Some of them abandoned their vehicles because they had to go find some warmth, some water, some food, and some safety. But the time trapped on the icy, slush-covered tar, a couple stories saying it wasn't all that bad. A trucker tried to make the best of the situation with a gesture of kindness, offered up a hot breakfast to his fellow stranded motorists. Now, no season we know is perfect. Everything's got its qualities and flaws. No one knows better here in the 4 states. So we ask you this morning, what is your favorite season? And a little surprised right now that winter's not in last place coming off of that video. 51% of you say give me the changing leaves and enjoy fall. 33% enjoy the rejuvenation of spring. And 11% do right now go with winter. Appreciate everybody taking part. Hit us up on our Facebook page, KOAM News Now. Go straight to the poll, koamnewsnow.com/vote. And here's that QR code. Once again, if you've got your phone handy, just pop a picture of that and it'll take you right to the poll. We'll be back with the news you need to know before you head out the door right after this.
Chances are...
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. U.S. Marshals are looking for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. The Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them. And they're making substitute pay consistent across the district. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy in the 4 states. If you try and find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit. That's according to Adam Fletcher at Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. That shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast. Well, building Legos can stimulate creativity among kids, and that's exactly what the Museum of Creativity in Fort Scott is going for with its Lego Club. The club is open for kids ages 7 to 18. It features a different theme each week that kids can build around. The top builds each week will be displayed in the museum. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Most places still hanging below the freezing mark, and because we've got a cold front that is still moving in through this morning, we'll actually have a drop before we stabilize around 9-10 a.m. Only make it up into the mid-30s today with the sunshine. And here we go. Tomorrow morning, you know, one positive aspect about this snow I want to point out, it should be the light, fluffy variety. It shouldn't be like the wet mess. But there it is as it moves in, and as we put the snow tracker in action, you can tell it's going to be the north-northwest that's going to get it before it returns for higher elevations in the Ozarks. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
PSU's Bicknell Center hosts many wonderful...
Well, sometimes even superheroes need a helping hand, and if you know Spring Hill, Tennessee, then you know which superhero we're talking about. Teenager Isaiah Brooks dresses up as Spider-Man, brightening the days for strangers. So the community decided it was time to brighten his. Terry Bulger has the story.
I didn't know anything about him.
For most of us, the daily scroll through Facebook produces the same old things. But when Steven Strickerhausen kept seeing the pictures of Spider-Man in his neighborhood, he needed to find out more.
It's like, man, this kid's pretty cool. He's doing a lot of cool stuff.
The cool kid he discovered was 18-year-old Isaiah Brooks, who bought a Spider-Man suit, stood on street corners, visited kids, and brightened the day for strangers.
I actually did. I went to a children's hospital. I did that. Well, they were all like shocked, like, whoa, Spider-Man.
The Good Samaritan here, Isaiah, is just 18 years old. What were you doing when you were 18?
I was not out doing stuff like that when I was 18 years old.
So impressed, Steven made a call.
I reached out to his mom, asked if there was anything that he needed, and she said, you know, he could use a tune-up on his car.
Murray County started fundraising.
Within 2 weeks, we raised over $20,000 for the car.
Spider-Man now rolls through town in red, turning heads in style.
This was the right kid to receive something like that. I think it's awesome. I don't know how to thank the community enough. Never in a million years would I have thought that they would have raised enough money to buy me a brand new car.
Talk about Pay It Forward, the Marvel comic, now the marvel of Murray County.
Just as long as he doesn't wear that mask when he drives the red car. We'll swing into your weather forecast right after the break.
Temperatures going to be down into the low 20s before we begin a rebound. Coming up here in just a little bit, let's take a look at our updated snow totals.
Coming up, U.S. Marshals search for an Oklahoma woman who violated her probation.
Chilly on this Wednesday morning, but this shot's going to have quite a different look by the time we get to tomorrow morning. We'll have the latest on our winter weather from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, with the spread of the highly contagious Omicron variant comes a higher demand for COVID testing. We'll tell you how local pharmacies are dealing with the increased demand.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It is now 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment, but first, let's address these dropping temperatures with Michael Hayslip.
Tanya, we were talking about how it's going to be chilly today, but also too, the thing is, we're not done bottoming out. We're still going to go down. Take a look at that 36-hour trend right here. So here's where we were right around midnight. We were still up into the 40s, and we're going to continue to drop down as we sit right now at 27 degrees. That's at Joplin Regional Airport. That's a live look over 7th and Rangeline. Now tomorrow at this time, not going to be surprised if we don't have some snow on the ground. Here's where we sit. These are actual temperatures, not wind chills. Still barely clinging to some freezing points that are south of I-44 where the cold front has moved in. Yeah, we've got a cold front. Another one on top of it moving in right now, and that's why we see the low 20s up to the north. This is the low pressure system on the Pacific Northwest. Oh, Mother Nature kind of gathering her forces right now. And what she's going to do is she's going to eject this down toward us. We're starting to see a little bit there creep over the Rockies. That's kind of like the first salvo, but it's really this one that we're going to pay attention to all day long. Now, we'll stabilize about 9, 10 o'clock temperature-wise. Get plenty of sunshine today. It's a dry air mass, despite the fact that we're harping on snow. This one is a dry air mass for today. That changes, of course, for tomorrow. As it begins to move in from the northwest, late Wednesday for the upper 4 states, and then spreading throughout Thursday morning, anywhere from, as far as our snow tracker goes, say we'll see little bands right here as it moves in that could get up to 1 to 2 inches. Then, as you get down to the south, especially south of I-44, I think everybody's going to see at least a dusting. But when you get down here, you're talking about ½ an inch of snow. Positive part of it. This is not the wet, sticky, yuck snow. This is going to be like more light and fluffy. But here's the other thing. It's going to stick around a little bit because since it's going to hit early Thursday morning, our temperature is substantially below freezing. Bitterly cold Thursday night into Friday, but then Friday we begin a nice little melt because a warm front actually hits, takes us up close to 40 on Friday, and then by Saturday, that's a thing of the past. We're almost up to mid-50s there on Saturday.
Can't complain about 50s in January. That's nice. All right, thanks, Michael. U.S. Marshals are looking for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year's supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy here in the 4 states. If you try to find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit. That's according to Adam Fletcher at Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. That shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast.
So basically, it's first come, first serve. If we hold something, sometimes people won't show up, and then you don't give it to somebody else that could have received one. So that's tough. But if you're here, we'll gladly sell you one if we had them in stock.
Amazon, CVS, and Walgreens have recently started to limit how many at-home COVID tests a customer can buy. Kansas reports a record 7-day average for new confirmed and probable COVID-19 cases. State Health Department data shows Kansas reported an average of 3,134 new COVID-19 cases a day for the 7 days ending yesterday. That's 13% higher than the previous record set in mid-November of 2020. Former employee of the Missouri House is suing for a wrongful termination after expressing concern about a COVID policy. Now a couple of top Missouri lawmakers are expected to be deposed in that federal lawsuit. Tad Mayfield says he asked Senate President Dave Schatz and former House Speaker Elijah Haar in August of 2020 to require masks in the entire Capitol building, not just among administrative staff of the House. He says he was later fired for alleged poor performance, but believes it was the mask request. The lawsuit comes as the legislature convenes its 2022 session today with a few COVID-19 safety measures, with only a few in place. Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them. And they're making substitute pay consistent across the district.
COVID has made it the matter more obvious. And we've always had problems finding subs, but COVID has kind of taken away maybe some of the veterans who would come and sub for us. And just the idea that being around a bunch of kids might make them a little nervous. But hopefully this will allow us an opportunity to bring some people back.
Retired support staff, custodians, and food service workers will also see a pay increase for filling in those positions as a substitute. The Crawford County Habitat for Humanity is accepting applications for home ownership. Organization builds houses for families in need. The application period runs until February 28th. Applicants must have lived in Crawford County for at least 1 year. If you are interested in applying, you can download an application online and email it to Habitat. We've provided a link on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Retail giant Target is offering support to area nonprofits, including Joplin's Connect to Culture, but they need your help. C2C and a handful of other organizations have been nominated for the Target Circle Community Giving Program. It's a way for Target to make donations to local nonprofits. But the way the donations are divided is up to the community. Target Circle members can vote for an organization, and the one with the most votes gets the highest percentage of funds. We provided a link to the voting on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. 6:07.
Give you an idea to illustrate the cold front here. You'll notice on the far right-hand side where it says 45 for Wednesday. Well, that's where we were. That's where we were at midnight. The cold front continues to drop us down anywhere from the low 20s to the mid 30s, and it's going to take a while before we actually kind of stabilize here and only make it up into the mid 30s as a whole. And remember, even though we're going to call it light and fluffy snow, it is still going to be there. Our first bout of the white stuff for the 2022 on its way for early tomorrow morning.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, an Iowa woman helps catch a wanted fugitive in Iowa. Plus, how schools are combating COVID as kids return to the classroom. And the Great Resignation continues as more young adults are quitting their jobs to seek better conditions. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. In Consumer Watch this morning, the Great Resignation continues. A record number of people are leaving their jobs as companies struggle to hire workers. Michael George reports.
I quit my job in February of 2021.
Last year, Gabby Iannello decided a corporate job in real estate wasn't for her, and she wanted to try something new.
You know, with the world changing, it put a lot of perspective of like, life is short, so I might as well try now while I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage.
The experience of resigning led to her own company called Corporate Quitter, where she offers podcasts and consulting, and more people are joining her. The Labor Department says 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in November, a new record. Many of those resignations are coming in the restaurant industry, trucking, and healthcare.
People don't want to always settle for the same thing that they might have settled for in employment in the past. Now we know that many jobs can be done remotely. Now we know that there can be a higher degree of flexibility.
Bankrate economist Mark Hamrick says people are quitting in the middle of a worker shortage. There are 10.6 million job openings in the U.S., according to the Labor Department.
The challenge for 2022 is going to be matching the supply and demand for workers.
Any advice for people who are really close to doing what you did? They're thinking about it.
Experiment before you actually take the leap. You're never going to know what you like or if you're even cut out for it until you actually try.
Iannello says her leap is leading to success in business and in life. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Well, many of us use that jolt of Java to get moving in the morning, and now a company in Finland is turning that caffeine kick into actual kicks. Rins, a shoe company, used a Kickstarter fund to brew up their waterproof sneakers using old coffee grounds. It takes just over a cup of used coffee beans to make a pair of shoes, and that translates to 21 cups of joe. Globally, we produce more than 23 million tons of coffee waste every year. That's a whole lot of shoes. And when it breaks down, it produces methane. A greenhouse gas experts say is about 30 times more harmful than CO2. Makers say wearing that waste is a fashionable way to help save the planet. The shoes look pretty cool too. Well, stocks were mixed on Tuesday. The Dow added 214 points, closing at a record high. The Nasdaq fell 210. S&P 500 dipped 3. Great resignation continues, as we said. The Department of Labor says 4.5 million Americans quit their jobs in November. That's a new record. Food services, healthcare, and warehousing saw the biggest increases month to month in the number of people quitting. There are more than 10 million job openings in the U.S. Airlines continued their run of problems on Tuesday. According to FlightAware, there were more than 1,500 flights canceled. Weather from coast to coast has been an issue since last week. Rising COVID cases have left airlines without the staff needed to fly. Well, it's been 30 years since Crystal Pepsi, and the soda maker is bringing it back for a limited return via a contest. All you have to do is post a picture of yourself from the 90s and a reply to Pepsi's Twitter account for a chance to win one of 300 six-packs of the clear Pepsi. Crystal Pepsi debuted in 1992 but was discontinued just 2 years later. That's it for Consumer Watch. We'll be right back.
617 calls for some weather on the 7s. One more day of easy cruising on 7th and Rangeline. By the time we get to the same site tomorrow, we're going to see some snow on the ground. Cold though, 27 degrees. Temperatures continue to drop with a wind chill right now of only 19. You can tell by the color contour how the cold front pressing in from the north-northwest down into the low 20s there in Iola and Fort Scott. Compare that to still sitting at 32 in Miami. Anderson 33 and Cassville clinging to a 34. Speaking of the Cassville area, that's where we see a little light cloud cover. Dry mass that's moving in though. And so we don't have to worry about any precipitation for today. We also are able to escape any watches or warnings. The turquoise that you see right there, light blue if you will. I'm not exactly a Pantone color expert. Anyway, this lighter blue, that's a wind chill advisory. Wind chill advisory, not necessarily associated with our snow that's on its way, and doesn't affect our highlighted counties, but give you an idea of how cold it's going to be once this arrives right here. And there she is. I also want to point out the U shape of the jet stream because we're going to take a look at how the snow just follows that. Here it is gathering and beginning now to move, making its gathering in the northwest, making its southeasterly push toward us. Cool today, around 35 degrees. Let's get to the good stuff. Here it comes late tonight into early Thursday morning. We'll see the majority of the accumulation in this area right here, eventually spreading down to the south and then kind of revamping after it gets past us with temperatures dropping down into the teens. The snow tracker will show you, we get these bands every now and then that'll give us some good accumulation. But once again, we're talking about more light and fluffy snow, not the wet stuff. So as this thing swoops through, we're talking about the U shape of the jet stream. Watch the snow after it gets past us. Regathers right there, combos with some Gulf moisture. And so it's rather impressive in the fact that it's going to start in the Pacific Northwest and then spread all the way to the East Coast by the time we get to Friday. 7-day forecast after the bitter cold on Thursday into Friday. We got a nice little warm up. We're already looking at 53 degrees by Saturday. An Iowa woman describes the capture of a fugitive at her home. This man's been on the run since November. He was wanted in the assault of a woman. The homeowner gave a terrifying first-hand account of the bloodied man who was trying to break in, and Laura Terrell sat down and talked to her.
There were just smears of blood on the floor.
Elaine Pearson recounts the terrifying ordeal that happened inside her Boone garage just after midnight on New Year's.
I heard like a really loud boom noise from my living room.
After peeking into her garage to investigate the noise, Pearson didn't see anything and then decided to check her front door.
Right at the moment I got up by the front door, he came to the front door and kind of slammed into it and was pulling the handle. And so I quickly ran up the stairs and got in the hallway, and I called the police right away, and I told them somebody's trying to break into my house.
This man, identified by police as 25-year-old Ricardo Carroll, was bloody and incoherent. Pearson says he ran back to her garage to hide underneath her car as police arrived.
The officers were pulling their guns, so I knew they'd found him, that someone was actually in here.
Boone police and Boone County deputies surrounded the garage. They say Carroll eventually came out, but he gave officers a fake name.
And one of our officers started investigating to figure out what this guy is, confirm his name, I guess I'll put it that way, and confirm who he was, learned that he has a girlfriend here in Boone, contacted her, And that's when this gentleman's story started to unravel.
Boone officers realized Carroll was the same man Des Moines police have been looking for since November. He is wanted for attempted murder after officers say he choked, punched, and burned a woman at a South Side apartment.
Later finding out that it was someone that had done so many horrible things, which I didn't find out till today, has just really been awful.
Pearson feels she is fortunate to be alive and hopes Carroll is never free again.
You're never prepared for something like that. When it happens, it's pretty scary.
Now, police say Carroll's girlfriend told them he tried to choke her earlier that night. He now faces a separate charge for that assault. Police say the woman Carroll is accused of assaulting in November is no longer in the hospital, but is still recovering. Be back with Healthwatch next.
Topping Healthwatch this morning, as kids' COVID-19 cases skyrocket, there's a battle brewing. Schools versus the virus. Britt Conway has a look at how the return to school is being handled across the country.
Rare, but rising. We're in the middle of an alarming increase in children's COVID-19 cases, and more kids are being hospitalized now with the virus than ever before. It begs the question, back to school or stay home? More than 3,200 schools have decided to go remote or delay kids' return from winter break. But health experts say kids are better off in a classroom with their peers, as long as it's done safely.
We need our children to be in schools. I think the term distance learning is like a contradiction in terms.
We need to get our children back at all costs.
And that's what the vast majority of schools throughout the country are doing.
What we've learned over the past 2 years is that there's significant risk keeping children out of school.
But just because kids can be in school doesn't mean there's enough staff there.
Did you have a substitute teacher today?
Yes. She actually sent out a text message saying that she has COVID and she's getting over it.
We have about 42 schools that have about 20% of their staff out.
We are getting to a point where that is a tremendous strain.
And frustration from parents and teachers unions is building.
The layers of mitigation that we need to keep our schools open and to keep our students inside of the school buildings have not happened here in Chicago.
We continue to share the concerns that families have about whether students should be going in and if the conditions are safe.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
Well, babies born in the first year of the pandemic showed less motor and social skills than babies born before the pandemic. Researchers at Columbia University studied 255 babies born between March and December of 2020. They found infants scored slightly lower in motor and social skills, even among mothers who never got COVID. Researchers believe stress the mother experienced and reduced interaction with others could be both to blame. More young people are vaping cannabis, especially with more potent cannabis oil. An analysis published in JAMA found cannabis vaping among adolescents jumped from 6% to 13% between 2013 and 2020. The study found many young people do not see vaping cannabis as dangerous. Doctors say the long-term impacts of cannabis vaping among adolescents are still unknown. A new study shows screening breast cancer patients for depression is highly effective. Kaiser Permanente researchers looked at patients who had been newly diagnosed and found that when they were given depression screening, 94% of those who needed help were referred to a mental health provider. Experts say too often mental health issues are under-identified among breast cancer patients. That's a look at some of today's top health stories you're watching. The KOAM Morning News.
Temperature is going to be in the mid-30s today. We're going to break down our snowfall activity and how much we're going to see when we come back right after this.
If you are interested.
Coming up, U.S. Marshals search for an Oklahoma woman who violated her probation.
To worry about on Wednesday is a little chill in the air, but with winter weather on its way, we're going to talk about snowfall for Thursday morning from the Skywatch Weather Center.
Also, with the spread of the highly contagious Omicron variant comes a higher demand for COVID testing. We'll tell you how local pharmacies are dealing with the increased demand.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. We'll get to those stories in just a moment. But first, we've got a chill in the air. Let's go to Michael Hayslip.
Temperatures continuing to drop, Tanya. Look up here to the north. Iola holding on to 20 degrees. Even down south of I-44, we've now seen Neosho, Monette, and Anderson all slip below the freezing mark. 27 is where we stand right now in Joplin. No worries for today other than trying to stay warm if you're going to be outside, because we're only top out about 35 degrees with a whole bunch of sunshine. As we work into the afternoon hours, no worries, even for the evening commute, it'll be fine. But then we're starting to see it develop up there to the northwest. Be honest, for late Wednesday into early Thursday. And so here's what Future Track has. By the time we get through Thursday morning right there, we're seeing more widespread snow. Biggest band's going to be up here to the northwest. Going to get a dusting as you move down to the south. It is going to stick on the ground, that's for sure. Positive note, it's not the fat, wet flakes. This should be rather light and fluffy snow because of the lack of moisture that we have up in the air. Now, as we get rid of it by about, say 8, 9 o'clock on Thursday, we sit back and we have very, very cold temperatures. So that's why it's going to stick around. Here's that band I was talking about as it moves through. And you see little pockets where we could get 2.5 inches on that, and then it revamps after it gets past us and heads towards the boot heel. So all things considered, we kind of luck out. It'd be nice if it stayed about 60, 70 miles up to our north, but this will be our first snow of 2022. And with those temperatures dropping down to the teens for Thursday night and Friday, it'll still be there Friday morning. Then we begin a little bit of a melt, go close to 40 on Friday, 50s on Saturday.
All right, sounds like it's going to be cold. All right, thanks, Michael. U.S. Marshals are searching for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy here in the 4 states. If you try to find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit, and that's according to Adam Fletcher at Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. That shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast.
So basically, it's first come, first serve. If we hold something, sometimes people won't show up, and then you don't give it to somebody else that could have received one. So that's tough. But if you're here, we'll gladly sell you one if we have them in stock.
Amazon, CVS, and Walgreens have recently started to limit how many at-home COVID tests a customer can buy. Kansas reports a record 7-day average for new, confirmed, and probable COVID-19 cases. State Health Department data shows Kansas reported an average of 3,134 new COVID-19 cases a day for the 7 days ending yesterday. That's 13% higher than the previous record set in mid-November of 2020. Well, Colorado cat definitely cashed in on one of its 9 lives by surviving the Marshall Fire. Now it's back home with its family after being found in the only house that remains standing on the block. Katie Eastman reports.
So smart. My baby. Oh, you got some little sock change there, buddy.
Now.
Yeah.
Oh, look. Hi, sweetie. Oh,
how are we doing today?
Not everyone believes in magic.
You've been eating a lot today?
But Camden Hall and his mom, Sally,
yes, Merlin,
are grateful
You're quite the trooper.
to be under Merlin's spell.
Well, Merlin has lived up to his namesake, little wizard, little
Yeah.
magician. They believed even when it didn't make sense.
About 6:30, I felt my phone ringing, so I pulled off to the side of the trail so I could take a call, and that's when my landlord told me that it was just all gone. Here it is.
Cam was at work when the Marshall Fire swept through Superior and destroyed everything he owned.
It used to be the place.
Merlin was home.
I was like 99% sure that I had left the sliding door open. However, I remember opening it, then closing it, and I was like, wait, did I open it again, or did I
An animal rescue group found the 9-year-old cat late Thursday night.
Can't imagine what he saw through his little kitty eyes, and had to have been quite terrifying.
He was on the porch of the only home still standing in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, it's my little grandcat, and Camden would have been lost, and it really would have been devastating. So we're very glad for Merlin, and he's just such a cute little kitty.
Yeah, I like to call him Mr. Twinkle Toes with a sparkly purple wrap.
Merlin is badly burned, but he's got more lives in him yet.
I think since he's a magician or magical Merlin, he's probably got more than 9.
Cam doesn't have a place to live or any belongings, but he's at peace.
I have Merlin and everything's gonna be okay.
Your eyes are a little watery today.
It's definitely my better half. Keeps me in check.
Best bud, little sidekick.
In the midst of loss, magic is found.
Sweet that they could be reunited. A GoFundMe account for Merlin's medical bills has already raised more than $14,000. That's impressive. Michael?
Here's our wind chills. Down to 14 right now in Iola, 15 in Nevada and Stockton. It's cold out there. And as this front finally gives up probably around 9, 10 o'clock, sunshine will lift us up into the 30s, and then we sit back and get ready for the beginning of flurries late tonight and turn into some legitimate snow action for Thursday morning.
That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. The January 6th committee wants to probe Sean Hannity. Stick with us and we'll tell you why. Plus, the seasons come and go each year, and some are worse than others. Looking at your summer and winter, we want to know, what's your favorite season? We let you weigh in. We'll be right back. Topping Nation Watch this morning, in the days leading up to the January 6th insurrection on Capitol Hill, Fox News host Sean Hannity was texting members of the Trump administration. And now a congressional committee wants to interview him about it. As we approach tomorrow's one-year anniversary, Capitol Police say they are better prepared for any future attacks. CBS's Laura Podesta is on Capitol Hill with more.
The bipartisan congressional committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol wants to hear from Sean Hannity.
Speaking of swamp politicians, swamp media mob.
The Fox News host did not address the request on his show last night. His lawyer, Jay Sekulow, a member of President Trump's impeachment team, said they will respond as appropriate. The committee released text messages Hannity sent to White House staff, including this one on January 5th. "I'm very worried about the next 48 hours. In their letter to Hannity, the committee wrote, "With the counting of the electoral votes scheduled for January 6th at 1 p.m., why were you concerned about the next 48 hours?
He was more than a Fox host. He was also a confident advisor, campaigner for the former president.
Capitol Police say they are prepared for tomorrow's anniversary and have spent the last year making improvements.
The threat level is much higher.
Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger does not believe a similar attack could occur today.
We've got to be in a posture where we think of everything and that we are trying to prepare for everything.
Tomorrow, President Biden is expected to thank the law enforcement officers who helped protect the Capitol.
The president is going to speak to the truth of what happened, not the lies that some have spread since.
Former President Trump canceled his own press event that was scheduled for January 6th. Laura Podesta, CBS News, Washington.
Now, while his press conference is canceled, the former president is still scheduled to hold a rally in Arizona later this month. Meanwhile, 3 more law enforcement officers are suing the former president over actions leading up to the attack. 7 officers sued the former president back in August. Join us on the KOAM Morning Show on Fox 14 in our next hour, and we'll have how Capitol Police have prepared themselves for if something like this ever happens again. Well, the little girl who was shot in Houston early on New Year's Day has been identified as Ariana Delane, the niece of George Floyd. Floyd was the black man killed by a white Minneapolis police officer who kneeled on his neck during an arrest in 2020. Ariana's father said multiple bullets hit their apartment just before 3 a.m. on January 1st. He said 4-year-old Ariana was sleeping in the front bedroom before she jumped up and said she'd been hit. Ariana's father said police did not arrive until more than 4 hours later. The girl's mother drove her to the hospital where she had surgery. The Family said Ariana's injuries include a punctured lung and liver and 3 broken ribs. She remains hospitalized. Houston police said Tuesday they do not have a suspect or motive in this case. Police chief also announced an internal affairs investigation into the department's response time to the shooting. 3 teens are facing attempted murder charges after a shooting Tuesday in the parking lot of an Illinois high school. Investigators say 2 17-year-olds were sitting in a parked car at an Auburn high school in Rockford when it was hit by gunfire. Both teens were shot and taken to local hospitals with non-life-threatening injuries. A short time later, officers started following a vehicle they believed was involved in the shooting. That car eventually crashed. 3 teenage boys attempted to run away from the scene, but all were caught. Police say they found 2 handguns in the car. The teens, who are 15, 16, and 17 years old, all face aggravated discharge of a weapon and attempted murder charges. Police are calling it a targeted shooting. High school's principal says they will have medical staff and counselors on campus for students. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Tanya, this morning on our KOAM News Now Facebook page in the morning Insta poll, we're discussing the seasons, but especially wintertime, as it has been an absolute nightmare on one of the nation's busiest highways. An icy mess on I-95 just outside of D.C. It traverses the eastern edge of Virginia. You've had people trapped for 19 hours, spent the night in their cars. Some of them ran out of gas. Some just abandoned their vehicles. They had to find some warmth, water, food, and safety. There are some good stories that came out of it, though. A trucker tried to make the best of a situation, offered up a hot breakfast to all his fellow stranded passengers. Our question for you this morning, what's your favorite season? And coming off of that, thought winter might end up in last place here. Right now we've got split decision between fall with 34%, spring with 34%, summer with a huge jump up all the way to 23%, and winter now falling down to 9%. Take part each and every morning. There's our Facebook page. You can go straight to the poll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. And just here in the last week or two, we've unveiled our QR code. All you have to do is pop a picture of that on your phone, and it will deliver you to the poll each and every morning. We're going to come back, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, but first, a look at what's coming up on CBS Mornings.
Hello to you, I'm Gail King. Coming up on CBS Mornings, we kick off our Road to the Grammy series. After 2 decades in music, see how British singer and songwriter, there she is, that's Yola, reinvented herself as a solo artist, and she got 2 nominations. Now she's talking to Anthony, so you know it's good. That's coming right up on CBS Mornings.
We take this time to honor today's 4-state hero, G.W. Henderson, a native of Columbus, Kansas. He was a staff sergeant in the United States Air Force. He was also a tail gunner in a B-17 bomber during World War II, flying missions over France and Germany. Among his many medals and accomplishments, an air medal with 4 clusters and the coveted Distinguishing Flying Cross. We thank you, G.W. Henderson, today's 4-state hero.
Ridge Newton. It's got Gold Glove written all over it right there. Look at that. Nothing gets past him. And it makes me long for warmer weather and a baseball field. Ridge, a very happy 9th birthday to you, and what a marvelous picture. He's in Fort Scott.
That's right. And Braylon Gayu turning 12 years old this year. Oh, that'd be her on the left there.
Somebody's spoiled right there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
My goodness.
Braylon is in Fredonia.
Now into the teenage years, Griffin Miles celebrating number 13. Griffin, I would love to know the background of the picture. I believe if that were expanded, that would be Santa on the left, and that would explain the reindeer on the right. But Griffin, a very happy 13th to you in Webb City.
That's a pretty cool picture, though. Like it. And let's see, we've got Kelly Olson turning 55 years old this year. Happy birthday to Kelly in Chanute.
Richard Thomas is celebrating his 71st birthday. That is a marvelous picture right there. Richard, a very happy birthday to you.
All right. And Noel Bates celebrating birthday number 76 this year. Happy birthday to Noel in Chanute.
Miss Marge Harper is turning 81. Marge, I want you to know that these birthday wishes come with love from the entire family. She is in Arma.
All right. And in Cherokee, We've got a 65th anniversary to celebrate. Gwen and Twyla Peak, 65 years. Congratulations.
Now we've got great news on this next picture right here, because Miss Marianne there on the left is back at home, and from all of us here, Miss Marianne, we are wishing you the best. We know that you are in excellent hands. Marianne York is the mother of our graphic artist Will York, and Will is responsible for putting our birthdays together each and every morning. And Marianne, I hope you're very proud of your son. The gentleman there that you see, the small gentleman that you see, that is Wyatt, because Marianne gets to spend time during this new year with her new grandson. And a happy 56th to you in Lawton.
All right, what a great picture there. And our birthday list goes on. In Carthage, Amanda Biddick is celebrating another year wiser. Kate Goebel turning 65 years old today, and Cheryl Maida in Coffeyville, happy birthday.
Gary McNichol, a happy birthday in Mound Valley, and Dina Daniels wrapping up our birthday list. Dina, she is celebrating in Cherryvale. A happy birthday and happy anniversary to all. That's where you can submit them to, birthdays at KOAMTV.com. You can also go to our website at KOAMNewsNow.com. Now, here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club by going to our website and signing up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
All right, Tanya, you're going to want to flip on over with us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, because that hero right there, that's right, that four-legged hero, he took police to the site of where its injured owners were. We'll have the harrowing story and we'll talk about man's best friend. Yeah, you're not going to want to miss that. So flip on over with us when we continue the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. The 36-hour temperature trend gives us a good illustration about how the cold front is not yet quite done, because we were still up in the mid to high 40s there when we turned the clock from Tuesday into Wednesday, and we keep on progressing in a downward trend. 27 degrees right now over 7th and Rangeline in Joplin with a wind chill of 19. Still clinging to 20 in Iola, but earlier when we started the show, we were seeing everything as high as 34 south of I-44. So slowly but surely, everybody beginning to drop down. About done with our cloud cover that was south of I-44 as well. And the cold front, very, very dry. So no precipitation for today. No watches, warnings, nor advisories either. This light blue that hangs out to the west of us, actually a wind chill advisory, not associated with the impending snow, associated with the very cold temperatures. As we see the color contour beginning to press down on us, and we're getting some movement now out of the Pacific Northwest. She's gathering up and beginning to shoot little waves of it over the Rockies. As far as our afternoon planner goes, we'll stabilize about 9-10 a.m. with plenty of sunshine today and make it up into the mid-30s. And then overnight, we'll begin with some flurries that move in from the northwest before we turn it into legitimate Thursday morning snow. Now, Wednesday evening commute will be fine as well. But I'd make sure that after midnight you keep an eye on the radar, especially if you're living up to the north and the west of our highlighted counties. And bitter, bitter cold, not only for tomorrow afternoon all the way through the nighttime and really into Friday morning as well. Here's a look at the snow tracker. That'll be our band where we'll see the most. Turns into more of a dusting there as you move south of the interstate. And then it revamps, reloads after it gets past us. So could be much, much worse. Look at and these bands right here, those are capable of dropping anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. So it kind of backs off, loses a little steam before it gets through us. But it's impressive in scope in the fact that it starts out here, and then by the time we get to Friday, this thing will have covered coast to coast. It'll make it all the way to the East Coast there. So it's going to stick around definitely for most of Friday. But then by the time we get to Saturday, that snow's going to be a thing of the past as we're up into the 50s. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. U.S. Marshals are looking for an Oklahoma woman who is considered a most wanted suspect. In November, Heather Griffith pled guilty related to an assault with a deadly weapon case. Authorities say she stabbed a woman at a hotel in Grove. She was sentenced to 1 year supervised probation. She's She's now wanted for violating that probation. Griffith was last seen in Grove, and authorities say she could still be there. If you have any information, you should contact law enforcement. The Carthage School Board approves a plan aimed at hiring more substitute teachers. Under the new plan, retired teachers and paraprofessionals would see a pay increase of $20 per day of substitute teaching. The district is also hiring up to 12 full-time substitutes who will be available when the district needs them. And they're making substitute pay consistent across the district. At-home rapid COVID-19 tests are flying off the shelves at a pharmacy here in the 4 states. If you try to find an at-home test, you may have to wait a bit. That's according to Adam Fletcher, Prater's Pharmacy in Webb City. Fletcher says their primary supplier of these tests has been out for months now. And that shortage, combined with the spread of the Omicron variant and holiday travel, means tests that they are able to get are going fast. Building Legos can stimulate creativity among kids, and that's exactly what the Museum of Creativity in Fort Scott is going for with its Lego Club. The club is open for kids ages 7 to 18. It features a different theme each week that kids can build around. The top builds each week will be displayed in the museum. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Make sure you join us tomorrow morning for the latest on our snowfall. Do me a favor, be safe. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.
Today's Pledge of